Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual. My name is Utsav Parekh and here are the top stories of the day. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was no different from Adolf Hitler. He linked Israel's attacks on Gaza to the treatment of Jewish people by the Nazis. Erdogan also repeated his criticism of Western support for Israel. He added that Israel enjoyed support from America, which has enabled its actions in Gaza. Following this, Netanyahu slammed Erdogan, saying he should be the last person to preach morality to others. Hundreds of mourners joined a funeral procession for 6 youths in the Israeli-occupied West Bank yesterday. The Palestinian Health Ministry said that they were killed in an Israeli raid into the city of Tulkarm. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said that the youths were hit by an airstrike after Israeli soldiers came under attack by militants who threw explosive devices at them. However, residents said that the youths were neither fighters nor militants and were far away from areas where clashes had erupted. The World Health Organization has said that only 20% of the hospitals in the Gaza Strip are functioning. A WHO spokesperson said that about 80% of the hospitals have been shut down due to a lack of health workers, medicines, and electricity. He added that one of the biggest problems facing the remaining hospitals is also the lack of room for more patients. In the US, pro-Palestinian protesters blocked the morning traffic around two of the nation's busiest airports. They blocked the entrances to the Los Angeles International Airport and New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. The police accused the protesters of throwing a police officer to the ground and attacking uninvolved people in their vehicles. Officers added that a total of 62 people were arrested during the two protests. Russian President Vladimir Putin met with India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar in the Kremlin yesterday. They spoke about trade relations between the two countries. Putin hailed the growth in Russian trade turnover with India. He also invited Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Moscow next year. India has become one of Russia's core economic partners since the West imposed sweeping sanctions on Moscow over the war in Ukraine. North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un has ordered the country to prepare for war. Kim has asked the military, the munitions industry and the nuclear weapons sector to accelerate war preparations. This is to counter what he called unprecedented confrontational moves by the US. Kim made these announcements at a key meeting of North Korea's ruling party. China has urged the US to stop interfering in Taiwan's upcoming presidential election. China's Taiwan Affairs Office said, and I quote, "The US must refrain from implementing the negative provisions related to Taiwan." A spokesperson also thanked Taiwanese businesses for contributing over $5 million in donations after an earthquake recently hit China. Referring to the donations, the spokesperson said that relations between China and Taiwan are unbreakable. Students ran into a convention center housing Rohingya refugees in the Indonesian city of Banda Aceh yesterday. They demanded that the refugees be deported. The UN's refugee agency described the incident as a mob attack. It comes amid growing hostility against Rohingya refugees in Indonesia. The Rohingya people have faced decades of persecution and abuse in their native Myanmar, which has prompted many to flee to Indonesia in boats. The American Republican Party has asked the US Supreme Court to intervene in Colorado's ruling over former President Donald Trump. Earlier this month, Colorado's top court disqualified Trump from appearing on the state's Republican primary ballot. This was over his alleged role in the 2021 US Capitol riots. Earlier, analysts had said that Colorado's ban is unlikely to be upheld by the US Supreme Court. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador yesterday. Blinken was visiting Mexico to discuss migration and figure out a strategy to slow the surge in illegal crossings at the southern U.S. border. Mexico pressed U.S. officials to reopen border crossings, while the U.S. sought assistance to stem irregular migration. Anti-government protests continue in the South American nation of Argentina. At least 6 people were detained during protests in the capital Buenos Aires yesterday. They were protesting against 300 measures presented by President Javier Milei last week. The rules seek to deregulate the South American country's economy. The Argentine demonstrators said these measures were against their basic social rights and against wages. Meanwhile, protests over the recent presidential election in the Democratic Republic of Congo threaten to further destabilize the nation. Congolese police violently broke up a banned protest in the capital city of Kinshasa yesterday. The police used tear gas and force to disperse protesters who had gathered for an opposition march which was in defiance of a government ban. Former European Commission President Jacques Delors has died at the age of 98. Delors is the longest-serving president of the European Commission. He served as president for 3 terms from January 1985 until the end of 1994. Delors was also the founding father of the European Union's historic single currency project. In climate news, the movement of flights and rail services was affected due to thick fog in India's capital, New Delhi, yesterday. The visibility was reduced to 50 meters in some regions. According to reports, over 110 flights were delayed. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a yellow alert for dense to very dense fog today. Meanwhile, Bangladesh's capital Dhaka is engulfed in toxic smog. The air quality turned hazardous with a quality index of 325. According to reports, Bangladesh's deteriorating air quality is attributed to construction projects and fossil fuel overuse. Cities in northwestern China have enforced mandatory emergency measures to curb the pollution crisis. This comes after China's Central Meteorological Observatory predicted dense haze for the country's north and east region. Authorities issued a red alert expecting serious pollution until Friday. The authorities have halted heavy production and limited coal processing in the cities. Activities like demolition operations, paintwork, stone cutting and mining have also been stopped. Several residential areas in Peru's northeastern region of Loreto were flooded due to heavy rain. Dozens of families were left homeless after floodwater entered their houses. Several people tried to rescue their belongings from the floodwaters. Peru's National Meteorology and Hydrology Service put Loreto on red alert. The Australian city of Sydney was battered by heavy rain, strong winds and hailstorms yesterday. Australia's Bureau of Meteorology issued a warning about the possibility of a severe thunderstorm on Friday as well. Sydney is still coping with the aftermath of storms that claimed 10 lives on Christmas Day. The Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is facing devastating floods and landslides. Local authorities say that at least 40 people have died. According to the United Nations climate experts, poor urban planning and weak infrastructure contribute to the vulnerability of communities in Africa. The climate crisis is aggravating extreme rainfall events in the continent. A group of over 2,400 senior women climate activists are suing Switzerland's government over climate inaction. The group has taken their case to the European Court of Human Rights after facing setbacks in regional and national courts. The group claims that the Swiss government is violating their human rights by not doing enough to address climate change. According to reports, the case focuses on the increasing severity of heat waves and the disproportionate impact on women, particularly older individuals. A hearing is set to take place next year. On to business and tech news. Apple can resume sales of its flagship smartwatches for now. A US appeals court has paused the government's import ban on the devices. Apple had filed an emergency request asking the US Court of Appeals to halt the ban, which was imposed after a patent dispute over its medical monitoring technology. The New York Times has sued ChatGPT maker OpenAI and Microsoft. It has accused the tech companies of using millions of the newspaper's articles without permission to help train their artificial intelligence technology. The NYT has claimed that OpenAI and Microsoft have caused billions of dollars in damages. Turkey will raise the minimum wage by 49% in the new year. This comes as the country's inflation is on track to surpass 70% in the coming months. The government has said that the monthly net minimum salary will be set at 17,002 liras or $578. The move aims to take some of the pressure off the citizens ahead of local elections. Households in Singapore are bracing for a sales tax hike that will take effect from 2024. The country's goods and services tax will be increased by 1 percentage point to 9% from Monday. This is the second phase of a two-stage rate hike. Earlier this year, the sales tax was raised to 8% from the previous 7%. The Monetary Authority of Singapore has imposed a civil penalty of about $3 million on Credit Suisse. This is over the bank's alleged failure to prevent or detect misconduct by its relationship managers. Relationship managers in the bank's Singapore branch have been accused of providing clients with inaccurate or incomplete post-trade disclosures. A US judge has rejected Chinese conglomerate Alibaba's bid to dismiss a lawsuit against the company. It has been accused of allowing the sale of counterfeit versions of the popular children's toy Squishmallows on its platform. Kelly Toys, the maker of Squishmallows, alleged that Alibaba knew about the sale of counterfeit products and contributed to the merchant's infringement of its copyright and trademarks. Chinese e-commerce company JD.com is planning sweeping salary increases for its workforce next year. It will nearly double the fixed salaries it pays to procurement, sales and other frontline staff starting on January 1st. On average, JD retail staff will get over 20% in pay hikes. By valuation, JD was once China's number 2 online retailer, but in recent years it has ceded ground to newer players. Taiwanese electronics company Foxconn has invested fresh capital in its Indian unit. It has infused an additional $55 million in its factory in Bengaluru. The company has made the investment through its Singapore-based subsidiary. Foxconn Singapore has acquired more than 400 million shares in the Indian unit. Indian food delivery platform Zomato has received a $48 million show cause notice from the country's Goods and Services Tax Office. This is over unpaid tax on delivery charges collected from customers. The Gurgaon-based company argues that it is not liable to pay these taxes. That's because it collects the fees on behalf of its delivery partners and does not add up to the company's revenue. Zomato said it will submit a response to the notice. Indian consulting firm Infosis has reportedly accused rival Cognizant of unethical poaching practices. According to the report, Infosys sent a written communication to Cognizant after a number of its senior personnel left to join the firm. Moving to sports, let's start with cricket. Bangladesh beat New Zealand by 5 wickets in yesterday's T20 match. Hosts New Zealand batted first and scored 134 runs in their innings. During the chase, Liton Das scored an unbeaten 42 to seal the win for the Tigers. Bangladesh now lead the 3-match T20 series 1-0. The ongoing test match between Australia and Pakistan was briefly halted on the third day. This is because the third umpire, Richard Illingworth, got stuck in an elevator at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. The game was halted for a full 5 minutes until the umpire returned to his position. In football, Manchester City beat Everton 3-1 last night. Everton took the lead after Jack Harrison scored in the 29th minute. In the second half, the Sky Blues fired 3 goals as Phil Foden, Julian Alvarez and Bernardo Silva found the back of the net. Manchester City have now climbed to the 4th spot in the Premier League. Chelsea beat Crystal Palace 2-1 in their Premier League encounter last night. The game was tied 1-1 going into half-time. Noni Madueke scored on a penalty to seal the win for Chelsea in the 86th minute. Wolverhampton Wanderers beat Brentford 4-1 last night. The game was tied at 1-1 in the first 15 minutes. Then Hwang Hee-chan scored a double to give the Wolves a comfortable lead. In the 89th minute, Brentford's defence was completely outplayed as the Wolves scored for the 4th time. Brazilian forward Vitor Roque has signed with La Liga club Barcelona. The 18-year-old has signed a 7-year contract with Barca. The deal has fetched Roque over $40 million. He will be seen in Barca colours starting next season. In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz beat Novak Djokovic in the one-off exhibition match last night. The special match was played in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh. World number 1 Djokovic won the first set 6-4, but then Alcaraz rallied back to win the next 2 sets 6-4, 6-4. Japanese tennis star Naomi Osaka returned to court for practice yesterday. The former world number 1 is back to tennis after a 15-month-long break. Osaka had to go on a break from the sport due to mental health concerns. Now she's preparing to make her return in next week's Brisbane International Tournament. Indian shuttler PV Sindhu has become the 16th highest paid woman athlete in the world. In 2023, Sindhu earned over $7 million through tournaments and off-field earnings. The highest paid woman athlete is Poland's tennis player Iga Świątek. World number 1 Świątek earned almost $24 million this year. The NBA has approved the $3.5 billion sale of billionaire Mark Cuban's majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks. The Adelson family, that owns the Las Vegas Sands Casino Company, will acquire the majority stake in the basketball team. Meanwhile, Cuban is expected to maintain control of the basketball team's operations. The sale ends Mark Cuban's 24-year ownership of the Dallas Mavericks, which he had acquired for $285 million. In entertainment news, director Christopher Nolan praised producer Zack Snyder's influence on superhero science fiction films. In an interview, Nolan credited Snyder with shaping contemporary superhero cinema. He credited Snyder's love for the cinematic potential to be fantastical and emotionally impactful. Nolan stated that he sees Snyder's influence in most current superhero movies. Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder have worked together in 2013's Man of Steel movie. Actor Dominic West, who played Prince Charles in The Crown, reveals that he and Prince Harry, once friends, are no longer on speaking terms. West said in an interview that the two never spoke after West spoke up about Harry's wild behavior in a 2014 press conference. The actor recalled Harry's notorious side away from cameras during their trip to the South Pole. Actor Timothée Chalamet shared in an interview that he has heard a 12-hour playlist of unreleased Bob Dylan music. The songs were recorded between 1959 and 1964. The actor described the experience as holding on to gold. Chalamet is set to portray Dylan in the upcoming biopic A Complete Unknown. The film is slated to release in 2024. Actor Kevin Hart has filed a lawsuit accusing YouTuber Latasha Kebe of attempting to extort him. According to reports, Kebe allegedly interviewed Hart's ex-assistant, who made defamatory statements. The actor claims that Kebe allegedly threatened to publish the interview unless he paid a ransom. Kebe also released a teaser of the interview as a warning. Actor Danny Masterson has been sent to prison in California to serve his jail time for rape convictions. In May this year, he was convicted of raping 2 women in his home in Los Angeles in 2003. In September, a judge sentenced him to 30 years to life in prison. According to reports, it will be more than 25 years before the actor is eligible for parole. Walt Disney production company Lucasfilm is suing a Chilean car wash named Star Wash for alleged plagiarism. The car wash, featuring attendants dressed as iconic Star Wars characters, faces a lawsuit over its name. According to reports, Lucasfilm seeks to block its registration, claiming potential confusion. The car wash owner, however, contests the suit, arguing that copyright doesn't cover car cleaning. Singer Ariana Grande has officially announced her return in 2024 with a new album. She took to Instagram to share a series of photos from her studio recording session. Grande called the process tiring, but she says she's also happy and grateful. This upcoming album will be her 7th one, and this is the one after 2020's Positions. South Korean rapper G-Dragon has launched an anti-drug foundation. This comes after he got a clean chit in an alleged substance abuse case. According to his representative, he donated a generous amount for the cause. The first project of the foundation will focus on eradicating drug abuse and supporting the rehabilitation of addicted youth. Singer Cher has filed for conservatorship over her 47-year-old son, Elijah Blue Allman. According to reports, the singer cites concerns about his inability to manage finances due to severe mental health and substance abuse issues. Cher aims to be the sole conservator to ensure that funds from a trust set up by Allman's late father are used appropriately. Comedian Tom Smothers has passed away at the age of 86 in California. According to the American National Comedy Center, he was battling cancer. Tom was the older half of the American comedic duo, the Smothers Brothers. He is survived by his 3 children, wife, and younger brother. That's all for this episode of Fast and Factual. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.